Sometimes we don't win. Don't give us the bird. Don't give us your stink eye. We try our best, and we're successful. Come watch our show. Red River.
All right, here we go. Betting Weekly Live. Coming at you on a Wednesday. Mike Carver along with Doug Kezirian as we get ready for all of the action. Tonight we have got game number 3 in Seattle between the Mariners and the Blue Jays. We've got a couple college football games. UTEP, Sam Houston State tonight. Get you excited. 1 win combined between the two teams. We've got some NHL. We've got some NBA preseason. Plenty of things here on a Wednesday to get you going on Betting Weekly Live. Doug, good to see you as always, my man. How are you?
Malfunction fixed there. Things are good. A little under the weather since you mentioned, but no, I'm good. We're just keep chugging along, nailing the picks, except for the best bet. Although I did lose a couple games, but I think we did well overall. But I lost another best bet. That happened
overall. But FIU got us last night, right? FIU was not helpful to us. We like the over. We like Western Kentucky. I did at least. Yeah.
Bronny and the bench reared their ugly head. But also, you have a 10-point underdog scores 25 points. You should be able to get over 50. We didn't get a touchdown out of the 10-point favorite. So that is what it is.
Very disappointing.
Dogs were barking yesterday.
Dogs were barking. And the Dodgers figured out a way, Doug, before we get to tonight's baseball, they figured out a way to mask their biggest problem, which was going to be their bullpen coming into the playoffs. Just let the starters go 8 and 9 innings and shut everybody down every single night. Unbelievable from Yamamoto last night.
In sports, ridiculous, right? And that's where your margin of error, right? You can afford a Sasaki to be your closer, and then if that doesn't work, bring in another guy, or you can have an abundance of riches with the offense. So if Shohei Ohtani, the multiple MVP and highest paid player, goes cold, you still have former MVPs, Mookie Betts and Freeman and the rest of the lineup that can rake. I'm a Dodger fan, but I get the frustration elsewhere. There is no salary cap in baseball. There is a luxury. We learned this during the Yankees run, right? When you have a Carl Pavano and it doesn't work out, your entire season doesn't hinge on that big purchase. You have a bunch of other guys and you have more bullets in the gun, so to speak. So the Dodgers have plenty of bullets. Also, they've circumvented the luxury tax penalties with the deferred payments to Shohei. So I can see changes maybe around the corner if the Dodgers keep it up, but they're only halfway home in the NLCS. They came back from an 0-2 hole a couple years ago during 2021, if I remember correctly. So plenty of 2020 COVID. So plenty of opportunities ahead to bet and wager. But yeah, it's good to be a Dodger fan right now.
Yeah, and hopefully one of these teams, Doug, can crawl out of this hole, this 2-0 hole, and actually give us a series. I'd hate to see a couple of sweeps or a couple 5-gamers. You want to get a little bit of gas here in the ALCS or the NLCS, which is where we're going to go to now to start things off tonight. Of course, Bet Rivers is giving you, don't forget as we get ready for the baseball, Bet Rivers giving you a 2-pack of MLB Profit Boost each day of the MLB playoffs. Log on to Bet Rivers for full details, terms, and conditions do apply. 2-pack of MLB Profit Boost, and that'll get you ready for the Mariners and the Blue Jays. Game number 3 this evening. The scene shifts to Seattle, where you're going to get Kirby tonight. You're going to get Shane Bieber for the Blue Jays right now. Doug, at Bet Rivers, minus 134 for Seattle, plus $110 for Toronto, with a flat 7 for the total.
Going against Kirby, Bieber's got reverse splits. So the guys who are righties should be able to hit Bieber well, but the couple guys that do have not. Guys are like Ofer against him. So I expect the Blue Jays to have a solid run here in this game, again, if those stats hold true. So I'm going to be looking at some unders as well. So I like the first 5 under 3.5 plus 102 because I like Kirby, so I can back them. Seattle team total under for the game because I think the bullpen is going to match up well for Toronto. And I think it's one of those things that the Mariners get down. I don't know how much fight they're going to have knowing they have a 2-0 lead. So Mariners team total under 3.5 -110 is a play for me. So initially I leaned Mariners because they're at home, and obviously that has a strategic advantage when the late innings. But I think the pitching matchup behind Bieber is favorable. So I think the Blue Jays get this one, but it has to be a low scoring game, and I think it has to be behind Bieber. So I would even look at some Bieber props as well. That's an option as well. You can go total outs would be over 14 and a half. So if he has to go 5 innings, that's all you need out of him. But I just, it's all hands on deck for the Blue Jays because they can't go down 3-0. So he went 5+ innings to close the regular season, but he got touched up against the Yanks. So if he pitches well, I think he should be able to get to that 5 inning mark. So I'm going to go Bieber over 14 and a half outs as well, -137. So all my bets are correlated to a low scoring game or at least a strong pitching performance from Shane Bieber.
Obviously, this is what it's all about. Like you said, it's all hands on deck for Toronto tonight. It'll be a quick hook for Bieber if things aren't looking very well. They got everybody pretty much ready to go out in the pen. You're right with some of these stats for tonight. There's actually one guy who hit some Crawford 6 for 12 off of Bieber in his career. I know Crawford just to get a hit was -135 at Bet Rivers when I looked right before the show. So I might go dabble with Crawford and put that with something else. But overall, Doug, I do like this under again tonight because I know we had a softball score the last time in game number 2 between these, but I think Kirby's going to pitch well. I think you're going to get a better performance out of Bieber than you got in the Yankee series, which is really the one bad pitch game that Toronto got there. It's another tight game that ends 4-2, 3-1, somewhere in that area. I'm with you. I lean a little bit to the Toronto side, but under for me, Doug, is where I like with the total.
Bringing their best stuff. Yep. And this is an under series. Like you said, we had a softball score in the last game, but typically these two teams lend themselves to an under. But I'm going to focus on the first 5 because I really am banking on the Mariners and stuff like that. So I'm going to go first 5 under 3.5, but also Mariners under 3.5. It's all hands on deck for the Blue Jays. Short hook, but Bieber over 14.5, -137. And you can chop it up. Doesn't have to be a full unit on all those plays. You can chop up one unit 3 different ways because they're all kind of correlated with the same handicap. And that's a way to pull it. And if you're into conspiracy theories and maybe the mob being involved, because Michael Corleone in the chat saying the books are going to pull the rug out from under us. Blue Jays are going to win the next 2. He likes to roll over mechanical parlay, but Michael Corleone always thinking stuff's going on behind the scenes.
Yes, there it is right there in the chat box. Pull the rug out from under us. The Blue Jays will win the next 2. Look, you mentioned it just before. Dodgers a couple years ago down 2-0. These series are never over at 2-0. There's always something that can change a series, a 7-gamer, very quickly. And despite Toronto going on the road, all it takes is one big performance for us. Bet Rivers does have you with a special tonight, trick or tater. Love taters. You know how much I love taters, Doug. Vlad Guerrero Jr. or Cal Raleigh to hit a home run in game 3 of the Mariners and the Jays, boosted from +155 to +200. Always like Raleigh. You know, it's amazing how Vlad, and this is baseball, we know that, Doug. Vlad was smoking hot against the Yankees. I mean, they couldn't get him out. And now, I mean, didn't really do much in the first 2 games here as the scene shifts to Seattle now for game 1. They need something big out of Vlad here if they're going to pull themselves back into it.
I mean, look, Ohtani's been ice cold, so I don't pretend to know, what goes down with certain hitters and certain I think it's all matchup driven, and the pitches are going 100+ miles an hour, and I know there's times where you're locked in as a batter, but for the most part, it's impossible to hit this stuff. And sometimes you just understand a pitcher's release point, so that's why certain batters feast on a certain pitcher. It's release point. The game slows down, so to speak. But otherwise, man, it's hit them where they ain't, and you get a good hop here and there. I mean, Muncy had a good, amazing scoop the other day to lead off an inning. He was facing a shift from third, and he short hopped it, and that goes off his mitt. Maybe there's a guy on second, but it's a much different inning. So a lot of this is just the bounce of the ball and also the cluster hits in an inning.
course. And a look at the big board before we get to, there's only 4 teams left. And now you've got Dodgers at Bet Rivers minus 167. This is to win the World Series. And the Mariners at plus 170. We have both of these teams up 2-0 in the series. Numbers are getting fatter for Toronto and Milwaukee. If you're a believer, Doug, those are pretty big numbers, but we kind of starting to see where this is going to shade and what kind of favorite LA is potentially going to be against Seattle if both of them can get 2 more wins here.
At the beginning of the playoffs, right? I said Seattle against the Dodgers. I just really felt that. Now, the Dodgers would have home field. And obviously, we know from the Super Bowl and the Chiefs, like when there's a big bad kid on the block that everyone's trying to knock off, the David versus Goliath, if you will, that narrative could shape. Now, the Mariners are more than just the David. They have Cal Raleigh, who's got 1 million home runs, and they've never been to the World Series. A lot of reason to root for them if you're on the other side of the country. The problem is they're on the West Coast, so maybe there's no some regional bias or anything like that. But if that's what we're looking at, but it comes down to the Dodgers' arms. Now, I will say Seattle's staff can hang with the Dodgers staff if they put it all together, and the lineup can more than make up for it. So that's been my issue with Milwaukee. They just don't have the bats or the arms, really. It's the arms is why I like the Dodgers so much in this series.
Seattle will give them, if that ends up being the matchup, of course, maybe the biggest push that they've had. Because like you said, the arms are there for the Mariners. They're going to be able to pitch with them. And what I like the acquisitions that they made, and it sets them all up for this. You know, the guys like Naylor and Suarez, you know, they're kind of grinder type guys, Doug. And you love those guys in October, right? Especially Naylor. I thought Naylor was a great grab for them because Naylor just he just leaves it all out there, and he gets big hits. He did it for Cleveland a couple years ago. I think Mariners Dodgers would be a fun series if that's what we're going to end up getting. I don't think it'll be one of these rollover 4 or 5 gamers. Not quite there yet. Things change fast. All it takes is a big Toronto win tonight, and suddenly everybody starts to feel a little differently. Don't forget, immediately following Jays Mariners tonight, head over to Toronto Sports Rush channel on the Bet Rivers Network for post-game coverage. Dan O'Toole, Kyle Andrew, and Bobby Valentine will all be there afterwards. Of course, Game 3 tonight, Toronto and Seattle. All right, more for Wednesday night, Doug. Let's go to the ice, where we have 4 games in the NHL tonight. Wasn't that bad overall, Doug, last night. We did a good thing flipping from the under to the over in that Toronto-Nashville game. We had Vegas ended up coming back against Calgary. The late night was good for us over at the Duck Pond. You had all those big money line teams like Dallas and Carolina going hits. Washington ended up winning too, which we talked about. So not a bad night on the ice on Tuesday for us.
Carolina is the type of team that could score 5 goals by themselves. In fact, they did. The problem is the Sharks only got 1 goal in the Shark tank. We didn't get anything late. We got early. You know, look, the Hurricanes did their part. They scored 2 early in the third, but no goals at all from either side. The final 12 minutes was a bummer. So I went under there. That was a bet I actually did make, the 6.5 there. You know, win some, lose some. You can't be red hot every night.
4 games on a Wednesday night tonight. Of course, you have a couple games in the TV doubleheader, which is Florida, Detroit, the early game, and then Chicago and St. Louis, the late TV doubleheader. Ottawa is in Buffalo tonight. The Sabres are horrible. And Calgary, playing a second night of a back-to-back, blew a game at home against Vegas last night. Now they go to Utah, Doug, for their home opener. First home game for Utah, who lost in Chicago the other night. I do like the old chalky money line parlay this evening of Utah at home facing Calgary, and then St. Louis with them. Blackhawks coming off a win, not a good team. Hard to see them winning 2 in a row. Last year, the Blues smashed them all 3 games, scored 4+ goals in every game, Doug. That's why not only do we like Blues Mammoth money line parlay at about even money, Blues team total over 3.5 tonight. They scored 4+ goals in every game against the Blackhawks last year. They've beaten them 9 of the last 10 that they've faced them. So I think team total or the money line parlay, however you want to work the Blues in.
A technical standpoint.
Sure.
In theory, if you put a team on a money line parlay, you really, because parlay odds aren't great, you really should only be doing it if you think there's line value, like if you think it's mispriced. Now, we all know that sometimes we just want a little action and things like that. So do you think there's actually line value just in a vacuum of the Blues money line in and of itself?
Where it's minus 250 right now. It's probably a touch high in terms of good money line value. Probably a touch high.
You're getting it sort of the true outcome of the game, or whatever you want to say. It gets like sort of suppressed the more you like the parlay component
Right.
also suppresses things. Now, if you did think there was line value, and look, I'll get into the next part of this, but if you did think there was line value, you're not going to get rich laying 250 to win one. So putting it in a parlay and the night of, things like that. And you can tie it into, like, let's say you like the Steelers just to win the game tomorrow night. You like that. And maybe you could also loop it in. You're like, hey, I'm taking Steelers in a survivor. So I'm going to put the Bengals plus 5.5, maybe an alternate line 7, and put it in that with the parlay, like emotional hedge. So there's a lot of like tools on the tool belt. It doesn't all have to come down to is there value and be all nerdy. Other things is live betting, right? So you can scrutinize a game, and I always say this about football because you have all week to scrutinize a game, right? And then like the first drive, the team gets to midfield and punts, and it's all of a sudden the line changes. So we can argue over a half point all week in a football game, and then within like 4 minutes of game time, the line's completely different. So in this case, obviously, who scores first? If there's a power play, even if it's 0-0 and the Blues go on the power play, that minus 250 is going to be like 280. Something like that in the first period. So we can scrutinize 10 cents all we want and put in badmouth parlays. But these are just things to keep in mind in the back of your head, like devil's advocate, things along those lines. But I'm certainly supportive of the Blues. If you think they get the win and it's ballpark the right price, fire away. I'm just surprised the Mammoth, you're that much of a believer in them.
It's more, I think, of an anti-Flame bet than maybe a pro Mammoth bet, because I don't think the Flames are all that good. And like I said to you yesterday, I like these spots playing against the teams on the second night, especially on the road. And look, it's not going to hit every night. It hit last night with Washington and with Dallas, who are at home in those similar spots. But I think that it's just one of those nights, especially home opener. They've opened on the road. They've played some low-scoring games despite losing to Chicago. I think it's a good night for the Mammoth for a play. Now, 235 is a lot to swallow for the Mammoth, and that's why I like them to win, Doug, and that's why I like to put them with the Blues. I'm not going to play them 235 by themselves.
You got to win over 2 out of 3 just to break even if you just bet those individually. We know that from the baseball season. And sometimes there's just really good spots. I know we came on after the game, but Lightning on Monday against the Bruins. It's just a really good spot. They were winless. They went up 3-0, 4-1, and then had to hang on. So if the Mammoth aren't going to go winless, right? This isn't NFL where some teams might go winless or just have one win. So you got to pick the spots. And like you said, it's an anti-Flames bet. So I certainly understand the logic, but it is really helpful just to flush it out sometimes.
We have these discussions sometimes because we getting into stuff like emotional hedges and things like that. I love that stuff when we start talking about it and you have some bigger bets maybe that you're going after. But even like you said, there's a Thursday night game in the NFL where you have a 5.5 point value. You think the Steelers are going to win, but maybe you don't want to lay the 5.5. And you see spots like the Blues tonight. Do you like, Doug, kind of maybe on Tuesday and Wednesday as you're building up to the NFL weekend, maybe throwing a couple of those together, like a blue money line with a Steeler money line, or a blue, maybe there's an NBA game when that starts next week, things like that to kind of throw them together on Tuesdays and Wednesdays when there's no NFL?
The best thing you can do in betting is not fall victim to what the sports books want you to do. Okay. So these arbitrary sample sizes, like I've had 7 of 9 winning months, which I just recently told someone, but that could be, I could have lost $1 million in the 2 months that I lost and won $1 the other 7 months, right? So net overall. So these arbitrary weeks, right? Some weeks are great and some weeks you're not. Like even these handicapping contests where you have to pick 5 NFL sides every week. Well, some weeks I only want 1, some weeks I want 7. Again, being able to do what you want and not what they want you to do with the restrictions. So with these money line parlays and stuff, if it's a slow sports day, like obviously October is always busy with baseball and everything, but let's say we get into December and college basketball's not ramping up yet. Like you should look to the next day. You shouldn't just look to a 2-game slate. If there's only a couple college football games, you should probably look to the weekend. Now, don't just force stuff either.
Yeah.
Do your homework. And if there's injuries, you got to wait to find out. Don't put it involved. In a perfect world, we could all do open parlays, but you can't do that here at the legal books. So you have to kind of figure out how to. But if there's always ways to think outside the box. I think I mentioned this last week. I went to the track, talked to some guys who I go every summer at Del Mar with, and it was like a 5-horse race, legitimately a 5-horse race. Baffert had a horse that was 1-2. It was 1-5, but it was 1-2 at post. And they all said like, oh, he's going to win by 10 to 15 lengths. I'm like, then why aren't you betting it? They're like, we still bet minus, 1-2s. I'm like, well, why? If you said it's going to win by 12 lengths in 2 minutes, you're going to get 50% return on your money. And they just said they don't do it. And I'm like, and I'm saying you shouldn't do it every day, but maybe once a month, there's an opportunity where like 1-2 would pay off, right? Like makes sense. If it's Baffert and this and all the other ones are just, and of course, this horse won by 12 lengths. I won my money and they just sat there and they didn't bet the race because they said, look, that's the sports better than you, where there's minus 200. We just don't do that. Yeah, but you have to, everything's in relation and nuanced, right? So here with these parlays and stuff, you have to just be prepared to think outside the box. I think I've touched on this before. Twice a college football season, I'll do a 6-point teaser. Now, obviously, it's not going to be an Air Force game with an over-under in the 60s and 70s, but these Iowa games with wind and the over-under is 35, taking a side from 1.5 to 7.5 probably makes sense. And the juice in college football teasers much lower than juice in NFL. Again, 2 a season tops. So I think we always have to be prepared for anything and to really think outside the box. Don't just fall victim to what's going on that day. Tease ahead. If you think a line's going to move, if you're doing parlays, one advantage to parlays is you lock in a line. So you want to lock in a line where you think it's going to move, right? So if you think a primetime game of the Steelers at 5.5 is going to have value because you think it's going to close 6.5, then it's actually more advantageous to lock it in ahead of time. So that would be a reason to lock it in and of itself, just to get that. So these are all sort of reasons. But again, the house has the benefit because they have the straddle or the vig and whatever. We get to pick stuff and decide when as well. So we have the entire menu. We get to choose which games we want and when. So selecting things like Friday, probably the money's going to come in against North Carolina, right? No one wants to bet on North Carolina. So Cal, late game. Now there's other games going on. Miami's playing. I mean, there's other big name schools. But I can't imagine North Carolina number is going to stay at 10.5. I don't think there's going to be late money from sharps on the Tar Heels. And I think that 11.5, 12 is kind of a dead zone. So I would think that number goes higher. So if you want to parlay it to North Carolina minus 10.5, knowing you're going to like UNC, that's probably a smart move.
Doug, I love hearing you talk about it.
You can also chop it up. Let's say you want to bet $20 on a parlay. It's not binary. You can do 10 on one part. You can add another leg for $2. And so it all accumulates to 20, but you can chop it up and then do a game on set. You can do $4 parlay. You can break up the legs. That's the other thing. If you like a 4.5 point dog and it's a $10 parlay, do $9 with the plus 4.5 and then do $1 with the money line, just to, kind of stretch. It's like a different version of a ladder,
right,
if you will, in parlay world.
Right. There you go. So we got 4 games on the ice tonight for you there. NBA preseason. We're going to do a couple NBA things today. Preseason and then some season-long win totals. Let's do the games first for tonight, Doug. 4 of them. Memphis is in Charlotte against the Hornets. Hornets -4 at Bet Rivers. Toronto is in Boston against the Celtics, who are -5.5. The Clippers are 3.5-point favorites in Sacramento. And the Mavs laying 8 against the Lakers in the late night game at Bet Rivers.
Well, I'm just looking for big numbers because the benches play hard and the coaches pull starters if they get what they want, because these point spreads are formulated based on like the starting lineups. We learned the Lakers Everything was nice. Lakers were up 15, early third after leading by 10 at the break. And then they shut it down and all the benches. It's just like, why am I laying this big number when the Luka's not playing the entire game? And so when I see a big number with the Lakers at 8, I'm going to grab it. I don't care about the home versus road that much and the mat, whatever. I just think it's the Lakers bench isn't anything to write home about. So if they don't cover, they don't cover. But I can only get behind those type of situations because it's just too many points otherwise. Now, as for all these other lines that are like 3, 5, hey, let me ask you this. Is there a handicap involved with the Celtics? The flat spot coming off the media game. They played the media and won 57-4, I believe it was. It was the Celtics coaches versus the media. Do we have a flat spot handicap at all?
Wow, they played the media game, huh? They scored four points.
Intense as hell and didn't want to mess around. Because usually it's like media versus media, and it's like a nice little recreational recess before the season. And then Missoula was all in and wanted to kill him.
Oh, boy. We got to start the real games, Doug. That's what we need. We need to get to the real games next week in the NBA. Let's do season win totals. We'll do some NBA future stuff between now and when they actually start next week. But today's a good day for win totals. Let me give you one, and then I'll jump over to you and you give me a couple. There's one that kind of stuck out to me the most. I think that we know there's some opportunity in the East this year, right, Doug? You've got Boston's going to be banged up. Indiana's not going to have Halliburton. There's a few teams that aren't going to maybe be as good as a previous year. The one that kind of jumps out to me to go for an over is Toronto, believe it or not. It's 38.5 at Bet Rivers right now. I know health is a major thing here, Doug, when it comes to the Raptors. They're going to finally get Ingram in there. You hope Barnes is healthy. You've got some guys like Grady Dick, up-and-coming players. You've got R.J. Barrett. You've got some pieces there that if actually everyone plays, which is a very hard thing to predict preseason and knowing this stuff, I feel like the Raptors are a team that can get 9 more wins off of last year, maybe be a team that's not just out of the play-in tournament, but actually in maybe that 5-6 range in the East. So that's a team that I'm kind of high on this year, Doug, on the East side.
During the NBA, but I was very big on the Raptors last year, and they got there on their win total, even with Barnes getting hurt and missing some time. I think it starts with their coach. He's an animal. He's a psycho in a good way. He wants to win every game, doesn't mess around. And yeah, they have a weird lineup with like the Knicks rejects or whatever you want to call it in that OG Anunoby trade. But I think he knows what he's doing. They're not messing around. And Toronto has a home court advantage, right? Like the travel spot of Toronto. I'll never forget when I was at ESPN doing NBA Tonight, and by the way, it was on at like 3 a.m, and then it was a half-hour show, and basically we had like 7 hours to hang around and watch games. So I got a lot of stories out of whoever I was working with that night. And Flip Saunders would tell me the best stories. And he said when we traded for Rasheed Wallace, first thing he said to me is, first time he met Rasheed, he goes, "Don't count on me in these 3 cities: Atlanta, New York, and Toronto." And he was laughing. He goes, "You know what? He was right. I couldn't count on him." And it was because of the nightlife in Toronto. So I think that's a home court advantage there with the travel spot over the course of the regular season. And the Raptors, obviously, Barnes is a budding superstar, but I think their coach is intense. I think they're effective team. And on paper, the lineup's pretty good. I like them as a 500 team. I do.
They can absolutely get there going forward. That Rajakovic is the Darko. We love him up in Toronto. Give me a little bit with Utah, because they are the lowest win total on the board coming into this NBA season, Doug.
Very low number, and we don't need many wins to get there. In my eyes, the absolute floor for the Jazz is like 15 or 16 wins. The ceiling is like 30. Okay. So it's like the Price is Right game where you have that like the guy, the mountain climber, and you have a much larger kind of window to win the over than the under. Now, why do I think the ceiling is 30? So Austin Ainge, Danny Ainge's son, is running things, and he said, now keep in mind, this team had the worst record last year, and they got the 5th draft pick. The lottery completely botched, and he goes, "We're not tanking this year." Literally openly said, "We aren't tanking this year," implying we did tank last year. And remember, they got a $100,000 fine for sitting Lauri Markkanen for no reason. They didn't care. They wanted to get Cooper Flagg. They didn't get it, but they wanted to give themselves the best chance. Now, the AJ's a stud coming out next year, but there's no Cooper Flagg. Either way, they realize it's a fool's errand. So they want to build their team. Now, the problem is last year they had some actually real players with John Collins and Sexton and some others. They don't have a whole lot, but they do have Lauri Markkanen. They have Kessler. They have Kevin Love for now. Now, some of those might be trades, but for the most part, they have an excellent coach and they have a lot of recent lottery picks. Okay. So they have the stud out of Rutgers, and then they have the Cody Williams, who's J-Dub's younger brother out of Colorado. He could make a leap. They have the other guy out of Vanderbilt. I'm forgetting his name, but he missed all of last season, so he could make a big step. They also have like the random guys like Isaiah Collier and Filipowski and other things. They also catch teams in altitude and on the West Coast, and they have an excellent coach in Hardy. So I think all those sort of variables that the upside is very high on some of these, right? Whether it's catching teams on the road trips or the altitude or the coaching or marketing going off. I think there's 20, 25 wins in there. I think over is a really good play.
I sometimes like having some fun with the really low win totals. I mean, unless they're going to be god awful and you know it. If you know they're going to be god awful, obviously don't go near them. But if there's a little bit of hope and there's some things like you said, some good coaching, couple of bright spots, I like going after Missoula's a maniac during those games. Steve from Lynn checks in the Boston media clothesline.
And there are other bad teams too. It's not like they're the
Right.
only bad team. And I remind everyone, now it was a weird situation, but the Valkyries win total last year was 8.5. Okay. They got there by the All-Star break and they got 20. It's just when teams you think are the bad aren't always the worst team. The NFL, the team with the lowest win total is never the team with the fewest odds. So in this case, I think the Jazz are going to be all in. So, I mean, there's other bad teams. There's other times where they load management. They're going to catch teams sitting guys. They're going to go on the road. How many times we see these like 14-point underdogs win outright? There's going to be a lot of that. They play the Wizards a few times a year. I mean, there's wins to be had out there.
I like for a low win total to go to the over is Brooklyn. Now, I know Brooklyn, they don't have the best roster. They didn't have a great roster last year. It's the kind of the same thing for me, Doug. I think Fernandez is an excellent coach. I don't know how. I have no idea still how he won as many games as he did last year. And last year, the Nets won 28 games, I believe it was. 26. They were 26 and 56. And I still don't know how he won those games. They got Porter now. Maybe Porter's going to play well, looking to get dealt down the road. I think 20.5's light. I could go for the Nets for the 21 wins, Doug.
They had a lot of Cam Thomas, but he was deferring. He missed some time, but they ran the offense. I'll tell you what, that second unit was really good. That's why they won a lot of games. But again, they caught people in New York, man. And some of those, you guys would be amazed at how often they party. Now, you hear stories now, whether it's Allen Iverson stories or others, you're starting to hear how much guys actually party. But there's guys who can go off in these games, like Terrence Mann. That guy can go off like no other. Danny Wolf, they love. They're like, it's the next baby Jokic. Now they did cut Drew Timme, so he didn't make the final roster. Maybe he gets picked up somewhere else. We'll see. But they had some ballers. They had this one guard. I can't remember his name. He was bombing all season last year. He burned me on so many bets. He was just incredible. So to your point, they develop a lot of guys. They have a lot of bigs who are bouncy, right? Like all those pogo sticks. So Clowney, Day'Ron Sharp, Claxton Starks. And to your point, Porter Jr., we'll see what he's got. But they're an interesting team for sure. And like you said, they're well coached.
Fernandez does a great job. And my other, and I had to have one under thrown in there as well. I'm gonna go after the Warriors at 46.5. I just don't see it. I don't see Curry again. I think he'll get hurt at some point like he did last year. You've got all the stuff with Kuminga going on. I'm sure Jimmy's going to miss some time at some point too. I thought they're probably going to be right where they were last year, right? 44 to 46 and playing in the play-in game again.
So when Butler and having that lineup, they were like 16-5 or something like that. So if they are what they were last year, then that's dangerous. ESPN Analytics has them as the best record in the Western Conference. I think it's comical. They've always sort of juiced the Warriors' odds and projections, I should say, the analytics team. So there's like a fly in the ointment in very favor of the Warriors. So that's always interesting. I'm with you. I think there's some disarray. Kerr's 60. He doesn't want Kuminga on the roster. But they bring in Horford, and that's a great point by Amish Farmer. I think he's a perfect fit for this team. Steph is Steph. Pajemski's supposed to be much better this year. They still have Buddy Hield and Melton. I mean, they have a lot of pieces, but they're undersized even with Horford. And Draymond's nothing offensively. We'll see. Steph is really impressive. So I wouldn't bet into that. I know that Sacramento Kings got Russell Westbrook today, but that's a team I am fading. They're really bad. I don't think people fully appreciate how bad they are. And they got rid of Mike Brown, who kind of kept it together a little bit. That's a team that I really think is going to be on the decline because there's just too many teams in the West. I'm very curious how the Suns fare because I think Booker's fantastic and Malawak's awesome, and he's going to be good out of the gates. But I'm anti-Kings. I think they're going to be like a disaster.
See the Knicks with Brown. You know, they had their best season in decades last year. I get it. They all hated Thibodeau.
Right. It's going to be so interesting because I do like the moves they made in the offseason. Yes, they lost Brogdon, who just announced his retirement. He was in the running for the final roster spot, but they have like no playbook, and they like Tibbs had a million plays. So like, I think they're going to be rejuvenated and have like the weight off their shoulders. But I wonder if the execution is going to be good. Don't forget, Mike Brown won the Pacific Division with the Kings, and they were 500-1. Think about that. Think about hitting a 500-1 future in the NBA. So they were 500-1. I mean, I know people betting them 2-something-1 in like November, so early in the season still, and they won the Pacific over the Lakers, the Suns. It's incredible, that team. So obviously this is a different situation. The Knicks have expectations, but maybe Brown is a better coach for like the regular season because he's going to, go easy on the guys, and Tibbs is just, 7-guy rotation and everything. And I think it just had run its course. But some of this stuff's fascinating. I am very curious to see how the Knicks fare with Mike Brown. He's well liked, but he's also very diligent. Like he would bring his own iron on the road and things like that. He's a sort of a military guy. Like his dad was in the military. So he's a very well liked, like jovial guy in a lot of ways, but he is buttoned up too.
2.5 at Bet Rivers for the Knicks for the win total. 150 games last year. And they got virtually, same squad coming back, different coach. We shall see how it goes. Now I'm ready, Doug. That's all I needed, Doug. Better bench. They did improve the bench. I'm ready now. See, I just needed that couple minutes talking NBA win totals, and now I'm ready for the season to start. I hadn't really had the NBA on my mind, and now I'm ready, Doug. Let's go. You got me gassed up with a couple of win totals for this year. Betting
It's
Weekly
a marathon. You better get ready.
You got to get ready. Betting Weekly live here on a Wednesday. Mike Carver and Doug Kezirian. Of course, make sure you check out our other shows as well, released earlier today. Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. That's right. Nigel Seeley and Sean Calvert back with you, previewing tomorrow morning's second round matches at 2 ATP events. So check out Nigel and Sean on that. Betting Weekly Game Bet Match on the Bet Rivers Network Betting Weekly studios right now. All right. One more thing for tonight, Doug. We have college football this evening, and we have to start with this classic that we are going to have right out of the gate, and that would be the 1-5 UTEP Miners taking the trip to Houston to see 0-6 Sam Houston this evening. And it's gone. It was 2.5 this morning at Bet Rivers, now -3 for UTEP with a 47.5 total.
This was the bet, and the line was creeping this way. As you mentioned, it's a classic. Combined 1-11 record. No wins against an FBS school. Sam Houston winless against the spread as well, except until last week's cover. They covered they were +7, lost by 2. I think UTEP's the only way to play this game. Now, could the Bearcats win? Of course. UTEP's got no wins against an FBS opponent. But the difference here is UTEP's defense is decent. And that, to me, is the difference maker. And I think that's why we have to play it, because Sam Houston's defense is putrid, and that really is the difference maker when you're only talking about a point spread of a field goal. I just think you have to play it. When you're talking about efficiency rankings, it's like in the 70s. The Bearcats rank like bottom 10, but UTEP's like in the 70s in terms of defense. So I think there's actually reason to think that they're going to get some stops. And Sam Houston's offenses can be shaky at times. Obviously, they're so bad. But I think there's enough reason to like a team if you have a distinct advantage. And Sam Houston in close games, last week they had 2 fourth-quarter leads and couldn't get a stop. They couldn't stop Jacksonville State from driving the field for a game-winning field goal, and they were on like the 20 with 20 seconds to go. It was ridiculous. They gave a 17-yard pass, an 18-yard run, just absurd. So UTEP's had a lot of close games against decent competition. I think they get over the hump here and get the win and cover, but you can't go big in this. You can't lay points on the road with a team that hasn't beaten anyone FBS. It's just that simple. Sam Houston played really hard last week. It wouldn't surprise me if they win. I think they think they're on the verge, so they're going to bring it, but I think UTEP is too.
Because all those numbers that you're talking about, and you look at how bad Sam Houston's offense is, and you have some of the defenses involved, does the under 47.5 get you interested at all with these kind of teams that can't move?
Is truly that bad. Now, I also thought FIU's defense was that bad, and Western Kentucky didn't score a darn touchdown. They threw an interception on the 2. Quarterback got pulled. He threw 3 picks. I worry that's midweek stuff. Like, it does get a little wonky. Like, we talk Maction, we talk Fun Belt. I tweeted last night, I said, is there a cool, catchy name for Conference USA? And some guy responded, they haven't earned it yet. They got to earn, like, have the craziness. We got to have some, like, onside kicks that return for a touchdown nonsense. We need some snow games that we do. Andrew G says, yeah, Western Kentucky's dead to me. I don't blame you. I mean, I'm sitting here with the over 55.5, and there's like 4 field goals in the first 14, first quarter in 2 minutes. And I'm saying, like, and they're making them. First of all, they're making them. And it's just like all these drives are stalling. It's just pathetic. But that's the quality of football you have midweek. So it should get interesting. Under makes sense. Let me ask you this, Carver.
Yes.
Seeing the 3 dogs all cover yesterday and some went outright, are you thinking underdog, like, the craziness of midweek games?
I think it more in the second game that we're about to talk about. I think I'd lean more with Jacksonville State being the dog right now, because they are Delaware's -3. The Fighting Blue Hens of Delaware are 3-point road favorites in Jacksonville State this evening with a monstrous 57 total that you're going to have. Now, Delaware they haven't been that bad. I mean, they beat UConn, which, for this level of competition that they're going to play in.
12, closed 8. It was getting bet by sharp money like they had the final score. That game went to overtime, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
But I was so curious of that because that game was getting bet like they knew the final score. And I was like, who the hell? I didn't know Delaware was in FBS. And you forgot about all these teams that, graduated to FBS.
Well,
I wouldn't lay it on the road, but Jacksonville State, man, they're both inconsistent, but I think Delaware wins. I just can't lay 3.
I actually like the over in this more than anything else. This Minicucci, this quarterback for Delaware, he's actually been on fire. He's got he had like 3 rushing touchdowns in 2 of the last 3 games. He had a huge game against UConn. They've been scoring tons of points. Jacksonville State, they haven't been scared of points either, Doug. Like, I know last night we had a number like this in South Alabama, and I ended up taking the under. I think it's an over here. I think Delaware and Jacksonville State can get us. Maybe this is the Conference USA game that can get us a fun name. Like, we can get a fun, wild Delaware Jacksonville State game tonight for us on a Wednesday.
Look, there's only 2 games. Last night we had 3. We got 1 baseball game that was going on. These games start before baseball. There's going to have a lot of eyeballs and thus a lot of handle. I've said my piece. I can only get involved in 1 game. UTEP -3 cautiously, and that's as far as I'll go.
All right. Well, there you go. UTEP for me as well. And I will go up and away. POINTS points with Delaware and Jacksonville State later this evening. And we can start working on a name for Conference USA.
like ASUC or whatever, but that's not, I mean, just not the right.
No.
Um,
No.
yes.
We got to get one. We'll get one, Doug. We're going to come up with
Fun
one.
Belt's so good. Maction's good, but
Fun Belt
really
and Maction are great names. And we just need somebody to crack the code on Conference USA. All right. Best bets for tonight before we get out of here. I am going to go with, UTEP I have on there. I think that because of the limited slate that we have tonight, I probably like UTEP the best out of anything. I'm actually going to put St. Louis Blues team total over 3.5 there as well, Doug. St. Louis Blues team total over 3.5. I kind of got off the Raleigh one that I thought about this morning. I like UTEP, and I like the team total for the Blues over 3.5.
Their hockey. We needed some hockey action tonight. At least I'm going to be diving into the hockey a little bit more on tonight and then moving forward. I'm going to go to that late ad I had with Shane Bieber. All hands on deck for the Blue Jays. Can't mess around. I think the number is skewed lower because what happened with the Yankees. But I think the matchup is much more favorable against this Mariners lineup. Again, reverse splits, Bieber over 14.5 outs. I think he gets us through 5. And it's not like the Blue Jays have the San Diego Padres bullpen waiting. I think the Bieber's going to get some slack on the rope because the alternative may not be better for the Jays as they've been rocked. So I like Bieber here to get me through 5 innings.
Big night for us, Doug. Here on a Wednesday, we've got a lot to get involved with. We got the baseball, we got the college football, and everything else. Now, tomorrow, we'll be back Betting Weekly Live, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. Pacific, Steelers Bengals. Tomorrow night in the NFL, you actually have Tulsa, East Carolina in college football. There's a full slate of hockey and both baseball games tomorrow, Doug. You have just after 6 East, the game 3 in Los Angeles, and we'll have the game 4 for the Mariners Blue Jays. So we got ourselves a full Thursday tomorrow, Doug.
Awesome, right? You get all these games going on with all these sports, NBA cranking as well. Next week's going to be great with the regular season NBA, with obviously NHL, and then all these other midweek games and World Series. So this is great time of year, and we just got to find some good wins.
Of our shows, Betting Weekly Studios, Bet Rivers Network. This is Betting Weekly Live. I'm Mike Carver, Doug Kezirian. We will see you back here tomorrow on Betting Weekly Live.